He walked up on stage with "When I get knocked down, I get back up again," blasting from the speakers, and a rapturous applause from party faithful. Winston Peters was in his element yesterday when he delivered his State of the Nation's address in Palmerston North, and it was sprinkled with classic Winstonisms, and the crowd, they just lapped it all up. And he took aim at Labour's legacy and, in his words, its folio of failures and barrage of broken promises. There was even a comparison between co-governance and Nazi Germany. Have a listen.
Not just ideological theory, it was race-based theory, where some people's DNA made them, sadly, according to these people, and condoned by their cultural fellow travellers, their DNA made them somehow better than others.
Mr. Peters joins us now. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Mr. Peters. Now, I get the point that you were trying to make with that comparison there, but why did you have to bring the Holocaust into this?
Well, because last year, Waititi from the Maori Party said that Maori had superior DNA. The moment you say that, and unchallenged by the mainstream media, unchecked, nobody said a thing about it. The moment you say that, you're heading down the pathway of separatism, apartheid, and all the ugly business of racism and exclusivity. And I'm against it, and I'm calling it out. I'm not
but the Māori Party weren't part of the last government.
Pardon?
The Māori Party weren't part of the last government.
Well, excuse me, did anybody in the last government call him out? No. Did you call him out? No.
It doesn't mean that the government was rolling out policies similar to Nazi Germany, though, if the Māori Party are talking about it from opposition.
What I'm saying is this is the pathway to that sort of behaviour, that sort of... When you say that someone is superior in their DNA, you're saying that they're entitled to different and superior, better treatment. That's awful. It's ugly. It's horrible. And I'm disgusted in my country. The mainstream media and other politicians never called it out.
Why did you pin this on Labour, though? Why didn't you say that this was a Te Pāti Māori thing if that's what was said at the time?
Because that's the pathway down which they went. The whole thing about Three Waters was that Maori would own the water of our country, something that's a gift from heaven. All of Polynesian, all of Maoridom knows it's a gift from heaven to be shared with everybody. It's an ugly face of modern radical Maoridism, Maori elitism. And the mass majority of Maori hate this. They know it's not them. And all I'm saying is we need a reality check here.
Yeah, and I get the point that you're making, because that's the point you're making about co-governance. But bringing the Holocaust into it, do you understand that that's inappropriate? And the Holocaust Centre of New Zealand said you shouldn't be throwing words like that and comparisons like that around willy-nilly.
You can rush off like the mainstream media after a year when this man made those racist comments, Waititi, when you did nothing. And you can rush off to the people from the Jewish community and say, what do you think of this? But my question is, how did you phrase the question? Did you mention Waititi's statement last year? Did you ask them what that meant back in Germany when it all started? No, you didn't. So I'm not being put off by that sort of behaviour from you guys at all.
Well, it's not from us. It's not from us. It's from the New Zealand Holocaust Centre.
Oh, no, but you rushed off to see them. But did you tell them what and why I said it? Did you point out to them that Waititi said that they were superior to everybody else in this country? No, you didn't. So
no, but you didn't even mention that in your speech, though.
Mention what?
The specific example you've given me for the reason that you made the comments.
Yes, I did. I mentioned what he said. I said that this comment about superior DNA, and I know where that began. That sort of thinking, and know where what the consequences of it are if they're unchecked, and they were by the mainstream media unchecked until I mentioned it the other day. And it wasn't a party faithful. It's over 700 people in a place called Palmerston North who came out to hear a different message, and they were pleased to hear it.
Yes, OK, great. I didn't realise that they weren't all party faithful. A lot of them would have been your members, though, right?
Look, it's a public meeting. I called it a State of the Nation, a public meeting. I didn't have party members there. Otherwise, this party must be screaming through the roof if there's 700 party members in Palmerston North alone.
Okay,
so stop downsizing the astonishing thing you saw, that a party's made a comeback and it's getting more popular by the day with the message.
I'm not trying to downsize what are you on about? I'm not trying to downsize your meeting at all. I'm sorry that I called it your party faithful when they were just members of the public.
You did at the start. You framed it as a party faithful meeting.
Yes, I did, and that is my mistake, and we'll move on. I'm sorry. I'm glad that 700 people from Palmerston North came to me.
You'll come to learn, Lloyd.
Yeah, I've got a lot to learn, but let's not have a Barney on here. That would not be appropriate. Let's talk about some of the things you said in your speech, because you did talk a lot about the Labour Party and Jacinda Ardern. You kind of ripped into Jacinda Ardern. What's your relationship like with her?
Well, I only mentioned her once. I said she made herself the Minister for Child Poverty, whereupon it grew. Child poverty got much worse. And that sort of symbolism and all that sort of tokenism that happened was sadly for the cost of New Zealand's population, and mainly the people at the bottom, Maori and Pacifica, lost out from a party that said that it cared for them. I'm just making the point very obvious. I only mentioned her in one sentence in one part of the speech.
No, you didn't. You mentioned her far more than that. You talked when you made the comparison between Helen Clark's government, because you worked with her in government, and working with the last two Labor leaders, which is Chris Hipkins and Jacinda Ardern. You talked about how much of a contrast that was and how much worse it was under Ardern than it was with Clark. And I just want to sort of know what your relationship with Ardern is like now.
Well, I'm not interested in giving you talk about this relationship. I'm talking about the future of this country's government. That was yesterday's story. And you know, there's a song that used to be out there, who wants yesterday's paper? Who wants yesterday's news? Why am I hearing it on your program? I'm talking about the future. That's what the speech was about. I'm talking about
you were just talking about comments that Aori Waititi made last year. I mean, that's yesterday's news. But hang on, you can't have it both ways.
I'm talking about the relevance. He's in Parliament. He's still there. Jacinda Ardern's well gone. You get my point now?
Yep, I get your point now. You've worked with both Jacinda Ardern as Deputy Prime Minister under her and your Deputy Prime Minister under Luxon. How do they compare?
Look, the reality is we're starting a new coalition. We're 3 months old. And apart from the fact we've inherited an economy, as I said last year, which is much worse than the forecasters and the commentary had said, and dare I say it, the mainstream media, we've got to make it work, and it's going fine.
Is he a good leader?
Well, we're all leaders, but we're in a coalition, all going together down the same pathway, cooperating to make sure, we've got to compromise as well, to make sure we turn this country around and take back our country, and we're doing it.
Is he a good leader, though? Is he a good leader of our country, given he is the Prime Minister?
Well, I think he's doing a very challenging and difficult job and putting up with a lot of crap from the New Zealand media, who are jumping down his throat every day while he's coming from a business background and demonstrating he understands how money works. The previous two prime ministers had no idea how money works, and that's why he's much better to work with.
So is it our fault for criticising him for claiming $52,000 in accommodation allowance for a house that
you never said about every other minister did the same thing, did you?
No, but he's the Prime Minister, and if other Prime Ministers, because for the 31 years before that, no other Prime Minister had claimed that allowance, they'd lived in Premier House or their own house. But you can understand why we ask him about this.
No, I don't understand, because it's not true. I know of countless ministers that took that benefit, and you guys said nothing.
No, Prime Ministers, I said, not ministers, Prime Ministers.
Oh, look, we're all ministers. We're all in the same boat here. My point is, he said that, I'm sorry I did that. But he was only doing what other ministers have done over and over again, wasting the public money, travelling everywhere, not doing anything important. I hope that at least I've got a record of being the most frugal minister there has ever been, and I have.
OK, let's talk about your meeting today, because you've got the Chinese Foreign Minister coming today. What's on the agenda for that meeting?
Well, it's a full agenda, bringing ourselves up to date. I'm reacquainting with somebody I know very well, met him a number of times, both offshore and in China. So I'm pleased to be talking about a very complex relationship that's been a lot of hard work in both of our interests. We've got differences, but our job is to put them aside and make sure that our relationship works in the long term. China's been good for our economy, and we've been important for China as well. It's been a very special relationship. It's very, very unique and earliest relationship of any country, and we've got to make sure we keep it on track. That's our purpose today.
Do you know if China's concerned that we're putting our eggs in different baskets? I know China's our #1 trading partner at the moment, but are they concerned that we're doing sort of a pivot to the US and a pivot to India? You've just spent the last week over in India as well. Are they concerned about that?
China understands that New Zealand has an independent foreign policy. We always have. It's a speech I made about 6 weeks ago. We have an independent foreign policy, and we always will. We will stand up for our interests. We make our statements very clear, whether it be whatever the big economy might be, that we want to treat people as equals, is the way we treat small countries like Niue, like Nauru, like Samoa. All those countries we treat as our absolute equal, not being superior. And we expect the same from countries bigger than us. And our job is to make our statement. I'm sure in the end, the Chinese will respect that.
You brought up those Pacific countries. Are you concerned about what China's doing in those countries?
I'm concerned, as I put it out over a long period of time, and particularly over the last 3 years, when there was such a drift in our foreign policy, and you guys all know it. If you have a look at the agenda, I've been more places in 3 months than they did for 3 years. I know that at Christmas we had all that delay, but we've still done all that. We're trying to make up the ground as hard as we can, and it's tough on my staff, it's tough on Foreign Affairs, but we're going to do it because it's important. We're going to make sure that New Zealand's influence is critical in the blue continent, as they say it is. We are a very respected country. We need to do more in our own national interest. I know it's not popular with the voters, but if we're not if we have the idea that we're an isolated island and do it right, we can do what we like. It doesn't matter. We'd be so wrong. Our long-term economic security depends upon the security of the Pacific, the blue continent, and to make sure the name Pacific remains what it means: peaceful, placid, and a great place to live.
Wonderful. We've got to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Mr. Peters. That is Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters.